Hey there, welcome back to my channel. I'm so happy that you're here. Today I'm going to be sharing with you Jeremiah's birth story, everything that we went through from when we went in to the hospital until he was born, and then the things that happened afterwards. So yeah, if you're not into birth stories, this video might not be for you. If you love birth stories, sit down and let's have a chat. So, if you are new to the channel, you don't know, might not know me, my name is Suetta. I am a mom to two little boys. Micah Lynn is almost 2 years old. He'll be 2 in July. And Jeremiah David is almost 3 months old. And when he was born, we went through some things with him. He had to stay in the NICU and everything, but yeah, I'm just gonna get into his story. So stick around and let's get into it. So I have my notes here, trying to stay organized with all the dates and make sure I get everything straight. But throughout my pregnancy with him, I had some complications of having low fluid and some things like that. So we had been to the hospital a few times before I actually went in to be induced. I went in at, I think I was right around 39 weeks. They had scheduled me to be induced, and the reason they did that is because with Micah, he was almost to the point of being too big, and they were afraid I would not be able to have a natural birth, and the same thing was happening with Jeremiah. So they scheduled me to be induced on a Monday morning, which was March 8th. We went in about 8 o'clock in the morning. We got there, got checked in and everything, and they started out with the water balloon to see if that would help me dilate, because with Micah, I never dilated on my own. They had to give me things to get it going and everything. So I made sure that they knew that. And so they tried the water balloon for a couple hours. That didn't really do anything. I think when I went in, I was at like 2 or 3 centimeters dilated. So yeah, first they tried the water balloon. That didn't do anything. So they actually gave me pills. Like, I don't remember the names of all of this and everything, but yeah, basically gave me things to help me dilate, and that kind of started progressing things. By that time, I think the water balloon they left in until around noon, and then towards afternoon they were trying other things. They gave me things through my IV. Like I said, I should remember the names of these things, and you might know what I'm talking about, but yeah, basically they gave me things to get dilated, and I think around, it was probably mid-afternoon, I started having regular contractions, and I was continuing to dilate. And by the time I got to 8 centimeters dilated, I think, I asked for an epidural, because if you are familiar with being induced or have been induced yourself, you probably know that labor pains and everything are just a lot more severe when you're induced. So yeah, I also had an epidural with Micah because I had to, like, my water broke, but then from there it was not progressing, and they had to give me things to dilate and everything. So your contractions come a lot stronger and faster than if it just all goes on its own. So yeah, I got an epidural. I think it was almost around midnight. That would have been Monday, March 8th. And that kind of helped to finish out my dilating. And then I think this all kind of, yeah, I got my epidural around midnight or like early Tuesday morning. And then things went pretty fast through that. My epidural kind of started wearing off after a couple hours, and then yeah, I was having very strong contractions. I was fully dilated, and then I'm not even sure what time it was when I actually started pushing, going into labor, but my epidural had worn off enough that I was able to still feel contractions. I knew when I had to push and things like that. And he was born, I think it was like 5:19 a.m. So I would say I probably pushed for an hour, hour and a half, something like that, give or take. So yeah, he was born 5:19 a.m. He was born healthy. They did have a little bit of a time right when he was born to get the mucus and everything out of him, so he could, like, he turned a little blue, but they didn't really notice anything in his breathing after that. Like, after they got it out of him, he seemed fine, he was breathing okay. And then yeah, a few times during Tuesday, that would have been March 9th then, like throughout the day, I noticed that when he was breathing and stuff, it sounded like he might have some liquid or fluids like that still need to come out. So a few times they suctioned some more fluids out, and he just had like more fluids in his body than probably normally babies would. So they just, yeah, suctioned it out a few times. But yeah, like I said, his breathing was normal. Nothing, we didn't really notice that anything was going on until that evening, which was Tuesday evening, or maybe it was closer, I think it was closer to midnight. So yeah, close, it was right around close to 24 hours after he was born. The nurse came in to do vital checks and everything, and I had put him in a sleeper and then also put him in a swaddle. And the nurse thought maybe he got too warm, but he was running a fever. I think it was like a little over 100 in fever. And so she took his sleeper off and kind of tried to get him cooled down, his fever down. And that's when we started noticing he was breathing heavily. Like, really, his chest, you could really like see he was not struggling to breathe, but it was still not comfortable. You could see he was not comfortable like he had been before that. So we thought the fever might have had something to do with that. They weren't sure. But the nurse took him out, and this was early morning now, probably 3-4 o'clock. But she took him out and did some more vital checks on him and stuff, and ended up actually putting him on a low dosage of oxygen just to help him breathe better. They checked his sugar levels and everything, and that was low. So they got him on to antibiotics. But they still weren't, at that point, they still weren't sure like what caused him to all of a sudden have to, like, his breathing got worse all of a sudden. So, at that point, yeah, he was on oxygen. They came in and told us kind of what was going on, and that they called, the Colorado Springs Children's Hospital, which was about a 2-hour drive from the hospital where I was at, where he was born. So they called Life Flight. And from when they called Life Flight, a helicopter to come, it was probably at least 2 hours from when they called them till they got there. So we had quite a wait. We just sat there with him. So yeah, after they called Life Flight, they continued with antibiotics and things, kept his vitals checked and the stuff, but he was still on oxygen. And Life Flight got there, and they gave me the option to fly with him. At that point, I was so weak, I was so tired, just not feeling good at all. They told me I can go along, but if I needed something, like all of a sudden had to puke or I passed out or anything like that, they wouldn't be able to help me, that they were only equipped to help the baby. So I decided that I would just go with David, drive with him up to the hospital. Like I said, it was about a 2-hour drive. So they took him and he was like, they had like an incubator thing on a stretcher, and they put him in there. That helped with his breathing and stuff. And so yeah, they life flighted him. When we got there, they had him in the NICU. They had him on all his vitals. They had him on antibiotics and all that, all hooked up with a bunch of tubes and everything. It was not fun to see at all. I'll actually try to share a few pictures here also, that you can see kind of what it looked like and everything. But yeah, basically what they kind of did was, the doctor came in, of course, and they did blood tests, they did all kinds of things to try to figure out what's going on that is making him have this breathing problem. And yeah, they kept him on antibiotics because his sugar, like I said, his sugar levels were going down, just kept going down every time they took him off antibiotics. And so yeah, that was basically why they kind of came to the conclusion then that the reason he was having breathing problems was because of right at birth, when he had those extra fluids and things, and also maybe a combination of also high altitude. So they never really found any other reasons. So yeah, after they kind of came to that conclusion, basically he just had to stay there, and keep him on antibiotics until he was to the point where they could take him off antibiotics and his blood sugar levels stayed up. So that took a few days. So we got to the NICU, that was Wednesday morning, and then we were there till Friday afternoon. They allowed us to go home then. He still had to be on oxygen. They gave us an oxygen tank. We had to go through training with somebody on how to take care of the oxygen, and we had to watch training videos and all things like that, basically before we were able to leave with the oxygen. And then he was on oxygen from there until he was a month old. So basically we just went back to the doctor about every 2 weeks. I think we were there twice, and then the third time he was able to come off, but they would just take him off his oxygen for a while, monitor him, and see if he was able to do without it. He was from when he went on oxygen all the way till he got off, he was on the lowest dosage possible, so it was not a lot of, but it was just enough that he still needed it for breathing. And it kind of was just a thing where he had to grow out of it. So he was right around a month old when we were able to get him off of there. We were very thankful that we were finally able to get it off. Carrying around an oxygen tank got tiring, but we were also very thankful that it was not worse than it was. It was just going through that whole process of being told he had to be life flighted and everything, and not knowing answers. It was just a very stressful process, and it was a growing experience for us, trusting God, letting him lead, trusting that he had a plan through all of this. And if you have been a NICU parent, I would love to hear from you. You can put it in the comments, reach out to me personally, whatever. I would love to hear from you. I think it's something that you can't really fully grasp what it's like until you go through it. And also, if you've had a child life flighted or anything like that, you probably know, just watching them leave is just heartbreaking. But we also trusted that they knew what they were doing. They were taking very good care of him. So yeah, that's basically the story. It was definitely, like I said, a learning experience and something I would not want to wish anybody to go through, but it was, yeah, God's will, and we wanted to accept that. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed this. If you enjoy my videos, please like and subscribe, leave me a comment, share it with a friend, and yeah, I will see you on the next one.